and welcome to Going to IEU podcast. I'm your today's host, Nydelius, and I'm here today with Eniola and Felicia. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Maybe we can start with you introducing yourself, what you're working with here at IE, and what your positions are. Who want to start?
Yes, I'll start. So my name is Eniola Harrison. I am the head of programs and partnerships at IE's Africa Center.
I am Felicia Appentang. I wear many hats at IE, but the hat that I'm wearing for my chat today with you is the hat of chair of the IE Africa Center.
Super nice. I'm excited to hear more about the Africa Center. So from a student perspective, we don't know much about the different regional centers we have here at IE. So it'd be interesting to hear more about what the aim is and what you're working with. Maybe you can give a quick introduction to the Africa Center.
Sure, happy to. So the center has been around for about 3 years. Our mission as it exists is to shine a light on African solutions to global challenges. And really embedded within that is a three-pronged thesis, right? So it's for us, Africa, which is both a place and a people, have been integral in shaping the world as it currently exists. Given current trends around demographics, are going to play a big role in shaping the future. And therefore, it's kind of urgent and crucial that people understand African history and business to be globally competitive. So that's sort of why we do what we do. That breaks down into sort of two principal buckets of programs. One I would put under entrepreneurial innovation, and that's where we have Gurus and Griots, Africa Lab, Social Innovators Retreat. And then one we have under narrative shifting. That's where we have the 1312 Project and Notes on a Continent and the African Narrative Index.
That's a lot of project I hear.
We're not bored.
Yeah. And there's one happening today, the closing ceremony of Gurus and Griots Academy, right?
Yes. So Gurus and Griots is the first of its kind program. Basically, it's an academic accelerator for African and Afro-descendant practitioners and academics who want to come to IE to co-create new academic content with us. So kind of going back to the why of, why we do things, these people that are part of the program have the solutions and the knowledge and the ideas that are just relevant for everybody, regardless of your school or of your program.
So you can see these where in the university?
Oh, very, very good question. So there are 5 members of the cohort. Some have already taught already. Some have taught in the BBA program. Others will be teaching later in the year in the Master's in International Development. But you can see them all across the IE ecosystem.
Super interesting. I haven't encountered one yet, but I'm going to visit you tonight.
Yes, find one. Yes.
Yeah, and ask a lot of questions.
Please do.
Yeah. So this program has been going on for how long?
It was one of our COVID innovations, frankly. So IE has not had a ton of faculty from Africa historically. And we really wanted to think about how can you solve a really kind of complex challenge like that from a market-based solution, right? So because we were all learning and teaching and growing and eating and making friends and going to birthdays online, having a great member of the faculty who is based, for instance, in Lagos or in Accra actually seemed much more doable now. So we built it very closely with the president, and so it's one of our COVID babies, and we launched it only last year. So it's our first cohort, and we plan to repeat.
You see a long-term future, maybe integrating more and more seminars and even courses like this?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the beauty of programs like this is that it really fits in very well within the IE ecosystem, where we're always hungry for new knowledge, new ideas, new kinds of people. And a lot of really great, practitioners that are really on the ground and really know their stuff and don't have the time to be a member of the faculty full time. So this allows them to experiment, to try out new stuff, and to just kind of be a part of our community. So very, very happy with it.
So who is these fellows? What type of field are they working in?
Oh, so many. So we have people who are politicians. We have venture capitalists. We have researchers. It's really a very diverse mix of people.
So Eniola, the African Lab. Would you tell us more about that?
So Africa Lab is a project that we're working on with the Bachelor in Communication. And essentially it's a project where we support our entrepreneurs. So we have a number of entrepreneurs that we've worked with on some of our different projects. We've run challenges. We have the Social Innovators Retreat, and so a number of our entrepreneurs had, I would say, issues and challenges around storytelling. And so we came together with the School of Communication to think about how our students who are working in visual and digital media could support them in their storytelling efforts. And essentially, this is a project that I think we've run. This is the third time that we've run this project. And each year we have the fourth year students who develop communication and storytelling tools and solutions for our African entrepreneurs. And so this year we actually have a cohort of about 10 projects. So IE students are working with entrepreneurs, innovators across the continent, developing really cool communication solutions for them. We've done all kinds of things from branding guides to videos to actually writing and publishing a really cool book, which we shipped to Liberia. We're very proud of that. And so it's a really fantastic project. It gives students the opportunity to work very, very closely with entrepreneurs to understand the unique challenges that they face. And our entrepreneurs are very excited as well to work with our very creative IE students. And so this is a really great project. We're really proud of that. And I think this is a project that we're going to see for a number of years.
So this is a lab that you choose as a communication student, or do everyone embark on this?
So it's particularly for the bachelors in communication and digital media. And so it's part of their final fourth year project.
Oh, so it's integrated into their education?
It's integrated into their program. Yes, absolutely.
Do you see any more integration into other programs?
Yes, we are working very hard to do more of that. And I think, yes, you'll be seeing a lot more of these types of programs or these types of, I would say, experiences integrated into the curriculum at IE.
So it's more a project-based learning, including entrepreneurs, working close with them as a communication student.
So this particular project, yes. But in terms of, how we're going to be integrating a lot of the work that we're doing, it will take on different forms. So this particular project is experiential. It's project-based. We will also have, I would say, part of the curriculum that is more sort of theoretical based as well. And so it will take on different forms, but you can expect to see more of this type of content in the academic curriculum.
Are there any feedback you heard from students who already gone through this project?
I mean, I remember one of the students who worked on this book, which is called Kolu's Moon, which is a really cool storytelling project about dealing with menstruation in girls in Liberia. And for her, this was a very, she loved the project. I think it changed her life, and, just even in terms of the direction of what she wanted to focus on after she was done with the bachelor. So it was a very life-changing experience for her, working very closely with the entrepreneur as well. So not just the actual project, but it has impact on how people see their lives, their future, and giving them meaning. So, yeah.
It sounds impactful.
Yeah.
It makes me want to do communications.
Well, I'm an IE communication alumni, so, I'm always a big fan of that. So trying to push, it's a good way to go.
It is a good degree, yeah. So who's your next target for the program? I'd be very curious to hear about that. Are you targeting LLB for any chance? I'm a LLB student.
Felicia, you can take that one.
So you just happened here?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, so the way that we tend to think about our group of partners internally is really driven by the needs of our entrepreneurs, right? And so for us, this work around storytelling really kind of came from them saying to us, we're doing really, really good work, and we know it, but not enough people beyond our, kind of folks immediately know it. Therefore, we need this kind of support. So I would say that once we begin to hear that they have some legal challenges we will be running with the biggest, flag of all the countries of Africa towards the LV program. But really, they are the ones that set the agenda because we're all about things that are practical and are useful for them.
That sounds good. I hope they will come with some legal advice requests soon.
Yes, we'd love that.
So on top of that, how do you think that students can get more involved into these type of projects that you're working with? As a student right now in IE, how do we contact Africa Center?
Yeah, so you can visit our website, our LinkedIn page, our Instagram page. You can email either one of us. We always love to chat with students. I would say sign up for our newsletter, the 1312 Project. You listen to our podcast, Notes on the Continent. So those are the ways I think to really get involved. But I would just kind of say keep your eyes peeled for what's happening in your classroom as well.
All right. So you mentioned the project, the 1312 project.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so this is actually a partnership between the Africa Center and the IE team in the U.S. and in Canada. We chose the year 1312 because it is the year that King Abu Bakari II of Mali set sail for the New World. He is most famous for that voyage and also being the father of Mansa Musa, who was the richest man that ever lived in history.
How rich was he?
Richer than Jeff Bezos.
Oh, wow.
Post-COVID.
How did he gain his richness?
Trade and natural resources. So like a fun fact about Mansa Musa was that he had so much gold with him so that when he first went to Cairo, he actually totally depleted the entire currency because just from his caravan, there was so much gold that everything became worthless.
Oh, wow.
So really for us, that is it's a journal, it's digital, it goes out every quarter. And so for us, that's about shining light on all of the ways that Africa has shaped the America and the world for the better.
For sure. What I can imagine is the Dutch trading company was like huge, but he must be even bigger than if he was richer than that.
Yeah. What I think is just really interesting when you look back on how we understand and then how we examine African history is that there are just really extraordinary stories of really unusual people. And we can kind of get into this little bit of a catch-22, where oftentimes it was in the interest of European powers to suppress those stories. Mm-hmm. And then because we don't know them, they act as though they aren't there, right? And so a really big part of our work is just telling those stories in an open and an honest way because the truth is just much more exciting.
Give them a voice.
Exactly.
So this is kind of the aim as well for Africa Center here in IE, to raise the voice and kind of make the university less Eurocentric.
Absolutely. IE is a truly global institution, but being global without Africa makes no sense, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why for us, getting to be a part of the team at the center is, I would say, really important to the institution and just really gives us lots of drive and purpose in our work.
Thank you for doing that.
We try.
I think that's the purpose for me as a student coming here, and I think for a lot of students that we are seeking that global approach. Mm. We're tired of the single and narrow-minded education that we probably get from back home and kind of want to reach out to learn about history. And I believe for myself, I learn much more about the history of countries by talking to people like you and having a classroom that is highly diverse.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Since I don't know much about you guys, maybe you would like to share something personal story, some highlights from working within the Africa Center.
So I think for me, my biggest highlight was one of our projects on narrative change. So we ran a project with the Master in Communication students, their capstone project, as well as undergraduate students in communication in their third year. And this project was on media narratives, so essentially researching media narratives about Africa in the bid to create an index, so to think about how these narratives affect economic development of the continent and to look, establish this link. And it was a really interesting, it was a great project, but what was even better about it was that our students were able to go to New York and present their work on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. And for me, I think that was one of the biggest highlights because we took, a concept, seeing it come to life, seeing students very excited about the work, and then being able to showcase their work for me was extremely fulfilling and rewarding. And as Felicia says, this is why we do, what we do. So that, I think, definitely my biggest highlight so far.
What about you, Felicia?
I can't top that one because I was also there.
So you can steal it. Steal the highlight.
Yeah. So I'm just going to say ditto to that highlight.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, how do you think the African Center will shape IE?
I think, as Felicia mentioned, and I think also as you've mentioned, right, the world, IE is a very diverse institution. We have a very global approach. But to be truly global, you cannot exclude the African continent. And, the African continent has shaped history, it's shaped literature, it's shaped mathematics over, for thousands of years. And I think that it's really important as we're in the 21st century, but into the future, to examine, the lessons that Africa has taught the world, to understand how, Africans, through their innovations, through their businesses, through their organizations, are currently shaping the world. I think that that's very important for the academic curriculum. It provides richness, it provides insights, and actually it prepares you also for the future because, as we like to say, the future is, well, it's a bit controversial, but it's the global south. But, realistically and practically speaking, in order to be a truly global citizen, you have to have insight, you have to have knowledge, you have to know, you have to understand, the continent a lot better. And so this is what we're trying to do as well, is just to enrich our learning at IE and enrich our curriculum and ensure that we have a truly diverse student body that is prepared for this new world that we're in post-COVID.
True, the future is unknown. We
Yes,
never know
absolutely
what will happen.
Absolutely.
And would you like to shed a light on some of those innovations and share with us?
I think that, so over the past decade, African innovation has, evolved quite a bit, particularly the digital revolution, right? So we have a number of countries where, particularly in fintech, for example, in mobile payments, in East Africa, you have Nigerian startups raising hundreds of millions of dollars. You have a very diversified, a very robust entrepreneurship ecosystem in Egypt. South Africa has a very, a very great health tech ecosystem. Agribusiness is evolving as well and is growing. So over the last 10 years, we've seen an acceleration, I would say, of innovation across the continent. And the challenge now is really about scaling up, and in order to do that, we're going to need collaboration between governments, between private sector, and also with academia. And this is where, of course, the center comes in. And that's why we're really focused on working with entrepreneurs in order to help them scale up, their businesses and to think about how the work that they do actually affects development, help them thinking about systems change, how the work that they do can actually change, and affect some of the systems and the structures that exist. And so, I think there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work that is already being done. We are here to shine a light on that.
It sounds like the project you guys are doing has a real impact too. Do you think there's one innovation hub in the continent or several? If you compare to, for example, Silicon Valley, you have that one spot of innovation.
No, it's not just one spot. There are a number of different hubs. Felicia was recently in Egypt because Egypt, as I mentioned, is really it's one of the fastest growing, I would say, entrepreneurship ecosystems across the continent. Kenya is a hotbed of fintech and mobile payments. The work that they've done, not just with M-Pesa, but with other fintech startups, is huge. Nigerian startups are raising millions, as I said, millions of dollars as well. South Africa also, they call it, Cape Town is called Silicon Cape, and these are just even, the English-speaking African countries. You have the French-speaking African countries as well. So I would say the continent is really a hotbed of innovation now, and there's lots of really exciting stuff going on. And so just encourage, students even just to look into it. I mean, you're thinking about, doing work that is, enriching, that's exciting, and frankly, I would say rewarding. Then yeah, you need to look at Africa.
The future.
Yeah.
Yep. Can I add to that?
Yes,
so,
please.
What I think is also really interesting when you look at these systems of innovation is that, right, and this is someone, so my father is from Ghana, my mother's American, I was raised in the U.S. The model used by Silicon Valley to create value and wealth and all those things is one that is highly imperfect, right? Number one, it is mostly kind of coming from government funding, at least initially. And I think that now, especially post-COVID, we're able to really examine that system and to say that this works really well, this does not work really well. And so to me, Africa is just a really exciting continent because we can ponder what is a new type of innovation hub that is perhaps more equitable, more accessible, and more exciting. I think that at the end of the day, every entrepreneur that is successful is solving a real challenge, right? And so I think that when you look at sort of origins of a company like Facebook/Meta, right, that was solving the very immediate need of how do I make friends, right? And so I think that when you look at what's happening now across the continent in these different cities, right, is that you see people that are solving real tangible problems too, right? I think that for us, what's really fun is to say, you have figured out this solution when it comes to, say, mobile payment, in which Africa has been eons ahead of Europe and the U.S. For years, right? Just kind of getting money from me to you, right, is just a lot easier to do over there than it has been over here, right? And so for us, saying, okay, so they have found a solution for you and I have dinner. Maybe you have 2 desserts, I only have 1. The bill comes, and now I just Venmo you. That same solution existed in Africa decades ago, right? So for us, finding that link is what's really, really exciting.
So are there any lessons learned from Africa?
Yeah, I mean, so what for us is really meaningful and also really fun is to look at those lessons that have shaped all of us going back, millennia. So a couple of my favorite examples are, you look at, for instance, in Uganda, and there you have something that's called the Ishango bone, which has, I think, one of the oldest full listings of prime numbers going back thousands of years. Essentially, you can argue, looking at music, that jazz, R&B, hip hop are all really derivative, right, from African rhythms, right? And then even in the area of astronomy, when you look at, so the Dogon people of Mali were able to map out a really advanced sense of the solar system, and they found Sirius A in, I think, 3200 BC, which the West found in the late 1800s, right? So these things have already been shaping us, right? So we already live in a world that is characterized, at least for us, by really great African genius. And just getting to pay attention and then to find those things is where the fun is.
History, humanities is something that I'm particularly passionate about. I mean, not to get into a whole, discourse about educational system, but this is something that I've chosen to sort of educate myself about as well through the years and to sort of focus on. But I would say that historically speaking, there's a lot that needs to be done when it comes to teaching history, when it comes to learning about history, particularly in our educational systems, which were often very sort of, I would say, Western primed.
Because in Sweden, we learn a lot about all the wars, but that is kind of after the whole Viking and the prehistoric of Sweden, and especially in my town, we're very much in love with our culture. So I can imagine that takes different shapes around the world, how much you're shaped from the Western perspective and how much you're integrating your own local perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, there has been a movement, I would say, going back like a few decades now, to talk about how we can decolonize education, right? And I actually don't even love that framing, because to me, because that sort of is centering the experience of being a colony as being the most important one, right? But actually, when you look at the history of Africa, that was a short period of time, going back thousands of years, right? But that said, thinking about what constructs we have around Africa and about how we talk about Africa is a really meaningful part of our work, because if we're talking to these really great entrepreneurs that do our programs, who are truly extraordinary, like really doing really, really cool stuff, that just, for us, it's one of the best highlights. If those stories are not told in a thoughtful, truthful, and adequate way, then that is really lost, right? So that's why we have those two buckets, because they have to go hand in hand.
What kind of recommendation would you have to have that thoughtful narrative when talking about the African nation?
Love this question. So I think that you should always be asking yourself why, right? So if you, for instance, right, so don't know much about, we'll say Ghana, because that's my home country, right? It's thinking, well, then why is that the case? Or I'll take, kind of one of my favorites, right? So we know that some of the best chocolate in the world comes from Switzerland. But even when I was little, I was like, but cocoa doesn't grow there.
That's true.
So why is that, right? And so I think that just always asking why, and I think that this to me just sort of, it's a very kind of personal principle, is that always be excited for new information that could prove you wrong. Right?
Finding the story behind the story.
Exactly. Yeah, and just realize that we all have pictures that are really incomplete about things. And Africa is going to be a place where, if you have learned about Africa from like a standard school book, and then hopefully you do Africa Lab, or you read 1312, or whatever, you're going to get a glimpse of, oh wow, this is actually very, very different than what I thought. And then you should work with us, and then you should go there. And then it's going to be a whole other way to see the world.
So how, as a student, faculty, or just a member of the IE community, how can you challenge this single story and explore more of the African cultures?
I think so, part of the work of the center is really, giving students, giving IE, the IE community, the opportunity to actually immerse themselves, right, or engage with either students, projects, entrepreneurs across the continent. And I think that this is just simply one of the ways. I think, getting involved in some of these projects, I would say, of course, read. I think that's really, really crucial. But also going, right? Tourism is a massive, it's also a massive opportunity to discover new places, new cultures, and doing business. This is, we are a community that, we're very business-minded, we're very business-oriented with purpose and with meaning. But so doing business in across the continent, I think, it's commerce, trade, culture, those are the ways I think that, you're able to challenge some of the existing narratives around the continent. And actually, I would also just say culture is a big way. So get into the movies, get into the music. It's really hot.
Any good recommendation there, maybe?
Man, I can give you a whole Spotify list. But seriously, Get into the culture, get into the books, get into the music, get into the art scene, the fashion scene. There's so much going on,
Fashion's amazing.
Fashion is amazing.
The textiles are beautiful.
Fashion is amazing. So this is, it's also things that delight our senses, the food. So, and Felicia maybe can talk about, an event that the center just organized with one of our entrepreneurs that's around food. But yeah.
So back in 2020, we partnered with the BBA program to do the first ever IE challenge. And then we themed that under COVID resilience in Africa. So we worked with about a half dozen African entrepreneurs from different sectors for different regions. So youth unemployment in West Africa, tourism in East Africa, fintech for South Africa. And one of those entrepreneurs was this amazing chef, creative entrepreneur named Binta. And she is from a tribe that is nomadic. And they're known to just sort of be across the continent and actually the world. So she's become very committed to sharing the story and the food of her people with the world. She launched this amazing business. Obviously, COVID happened, and she had to rethink it. But what's amazing was that our students were really a part of her story and of her business. So writing new business plans, new ideas, and new solutions. Having now a farm that's now set up in Ghana with a foundation. And she's also an award-winning chef. She goes all over the world, gets all kinds of fancy prizes that I would list here, but I don't have time to go through the whole thing. And so she happened to be in the U.S. for a festival. And so she, for our partners at MIT, hosted a traditional West African dinner in Miami with our IE alumni. And then, explained to us why she makes the food, where it comes from, how she sources. Number one, it was delicious and really, really fun just to be around all those really great entrepreneurs, both from MIT and also from IE. And I would say if you think about anything that's linked to climate change and the SDGs, if you are not centering African agriculture in that conversation, and by centering, I mean really listening and really focusing on it, then it's really not going to be a good use of your time. And so people like her are the ones that are going to be guiding us for how we can live in a way that is more sustainable. And the food's delicious.
It makes me hungry right now.
I am also hungry right now, too, thinking about it.
So the Global Village is coming up. Will we see some of that type of food?
So we actually have a meeting today with somebody from Global Villages. So they're going to ask us this question. Are you guys working together?
No ties.
So we would love to. I mean, so for us, that's always been like a really, really fun event. And we'll support the Africa Club and the project however we can.
Maybe we can drag her here and maybe cook some meal for us.
I mean, but if not, you just should go to Accra and then go hang out with Chef Binta, because I personally am an okay cook. Like, I can do it. But I've won 0 awards.
I mean, the awards are just a highlight of your skill, but it doesn't mean that you're amazing too.
Okay, you're right. I am an amazing cook, and I've been unrecognized to date.
Exactly.
For my accomplishments.
So do you have any other plans for the Global Village that are coming up? I know there's food and there's also cultural performances. I'm running the Nordic Club and we are planning it too. But I would like to hear maybe a sneak peek what you guys are planning for the day.
So we're still very early, so I don't want to give like a fake sneak peek before we've spoken with the team and then come to an agreement. But certainly you'll be seeing some really cool parts of African culture and of business there too. So we're going to try to bring it all together.
Beautiful. I'm excited for the day personally. So to wrap it up, would you like to share with us some inspirational figures that you keep with you and that inspire you to go further?
Oh, yeah. So I'll pick, so there are a couple, but the truth is that the people that most inspire me, and I would say the team, are the entrepreneurs that we support through our programs. They are just, they're just genuine doers, right? And they have the sophistication to look at a really, really complex problem. And then I would say the bravery to just kind of get in there and solve it, and then to be very open, to be humble, to adapt. And really it's people like that that are actually really, really inspiring to me. I mean, of course, throughout history, there's Queen Santawa from Ghana, because I'm obviously Ghanaian, right? There are extraordinary writers and artists who I really admire, but really it's the entrepreneurs actually themselves, because I feel like they teach me every single day.
What about you, Eniola?
Oh, there's so many, I would say, inspiring, figures and people. I really cannot pick one, because I think people are just, they're doing what they do. Like, they're living their lives. They're creating really exciting, I would say, businesses, organizations, methodologies, curriculum. I think for me, there's just a whole wealth of knowledge of solutions to global challenges coming out of the continent. And yeah, I mean, I'm inspired by the people who go about doing what they do, living their lives, and yeah, just bringing a whole new, fresh dimension to the world that we live in. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
I hope this talk has inspired a lot of people to explore and challenge their single stories, and also engage more in the IE community and what we have to offer here.